Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky made a high-profile visit to the United Kingdom, reinforcing ties with key British leaders while securing substantial financial and military aid. His meetings with Prime Minister Keir Starmer and King Charles underscored the enduring partnership between the two nations as Ukraine continues to resist Russia's ongoing invasion. Upon arriving in London, Zelensky was met with strong displays of support. Outside Downing Street, he was warmly received by supporters before being welcomed by Starmer. Emphasizing Britain's unwavering commitment, the Prime Minister assured Zelensky that the UK remained fully behind Ukraine and would stand by its side for as long as necessary. In response, Zelensky expressed gratitude to the British people, acknowledging the UK's steadfast backing since the very beginning of the conflict. During the visit, a significant agreement was reached between the UK and Ukraine. The British government pledged a £2.26 billion loan to support Ukraine's military and defense infrastructure. This funding, signed off by Chancellor Rachel Reeves and Ukraine's Finance Minister Sergei Marchenko, is set to be repaid using profits derived from frozen Russian sovereign assets. In addition, a further £1.6 billion deal was struck, allowing Ukraine to procure 5,000 advanced air defense missiles. These weapons, manufactured by Thales, boast a range exceeding 6 kilometers and can be launched from land, sea, or air, making them a crucial addition to Ukraine's defense capabilities. Starmer emphasized the importance of these weapons, explaining that they would be instrumental in safeguarding vital infrastructure and enhancing Ukraine's resilience in the long term. Beyond military support, Zelensky's visit carried a significant diplomatic dimension. His audience with King Charles at Sandringham House provided a rare opportunity for in-depth discussions. The meeting, which lasted nearly an hour, allowed the two leaders to reaffirm their mutual commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty and security. Zelensky later described the discussion as highly productive and expressed deep appreciation for the king's ongoing efforts to support Ukraine, as well as the broader solidarity demonstrated by the royal family. In parallel with these developments, the UK found itself at the center of discussions concerning a potential ceasefire in Ukraine. Reports emerged that Britain and France had floated the idea of a one-month truce covering key infrastructure, including air and sea routes, as well as energy facilities. French President Emmanuel Macron had initially hinted at this proposal in an interview, but UK Armed Forces Minister Luc Pollard later clarified that no concrete agreement had been reached regarding a potential ceasefire arrangement. Meanwhile, European leaders continued to grapple with the complex realities of the war, particularly as Ukraine faced escalating Russian aggression. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot issued a stark warning, highlighting the increasing proximity of the war to Western Europe. Against this backdrop, Zelensky indicated that he would be working with European allies to craft a framework for a potential peace settlement, one that could eventually be presented to Washington. This latest push for European-led diplomacy gained momentum during a pivotal summit in London, where 18 allied nations convened for urgent crisis talks. The meeting came at a critical moment, with Ukraine battling growing uncertainty over future U.S. support and struggling to maintain its defensive position against relentless Russian assaults. Just days before the summit, tensions between Zelensky and U.S. leadership had surfaced in Washington. In a widely publicized encounter, the U.S. president had reportedly rebuked the Ukrainian leader in front of journalists, an incident that raised concerns about America's long-term commitment to Kyiv. Fears mounted that Washington might pressure Ukraine into accepting a compromise that would ultimately serve Russian interests. However, in London, European leaders sought to reassure Zelensky, signaling a unified front in backing Ukraine's resistance and efforts to secure a just peace. The summit solidified a shared European commitment to ensuring Ukraine's security while also shaping a collective vision for the conditions under which peace could be achieved. In a statement following the discussions, Zelensky underscored the necessity of peace, but made it clear that Ukraine could not accept an indefinite conflict. In a message shared on Telegram, Zelensky outlined his next steps, emphasizing that Europe would be instrumental in defining the terms of any prospective peace deal. He noted that European leaders were in the process of formulating their core negotiating positions, which would later be presented to their U.S. counterparts. He stressed the importance of drawing clear lines, both in terms of what Ukraine must achieve and what it cannot afford to compromise on. Starmer echoed the sentiment, confirming that Britain, France, and other allies would be collaborating closely with Ukraine to develop a viable roadmap for ending the hostilities. Once finalized, this proposal would be brought to Washington, where discussions would continue on the international stage. Despite diplomatic maneuvers aimed at securing a pause in hostilities, the reality on the ground remained dire for Ukraine. Russia continued its aggressive military campaign, launching large-scale drone assaults in an attempt to cripple Ukrainian defenses. In the days leading up to Zelensky's visit, Ukraine endured its most massive drone attack since the start of the war, with Russian forces deploying over 200 unmanned aerial vehicles in a single night. The sheer scale of these attacks underscored the urgency of securing additional military aid, reinforcing the significance of the agreements reached in London. As Ukraine braces for further escalation, its leadership remains focused on rallying international support, securing vital resources, and shaping a diplomatic strategy that safeguards the nation's future. In a moment fraught with both challenges and opportunities, Zelensky's visit to the UK served as a critical step in fortifying Ukraine's defense, solidifying alliances, and laying the groundwork for potential peace negotiations. Whether these efforts will translate into meaningful progress on the battlefield or at the negotiating table remains to be seen. But one thing is clear: Ukraine's fight for sovereignty is far from over, and its allies are doubling down on their commitment to see it through.